Hey guys, Michael here. I just engraved this store-bought pizza peel shaped cutting board, and I want to share with you real quick the process I went through to do this. So stick with me, let's get to it. So the customer brought this to us and they wanted to engrave a certain saying on here, just a thank you note to someone that helped them. So I took this board and I wanted to prepare it a little bit more. So what I did was, although it was kind of smooth from the store, I went ahead and sanded it down even more. So I took my orbital sander, sanded it down, and also by hand sanded the edges. And then I took a water bottle and sprayed a light mist all over this, enough to where it would soak in a little bit, and I did it on both sides. What that's going to do is, after that dries, it's actually going to raise up some of the grain. And I want that because later on, if you don't do that and you put oil on here, sometimes it will become uneven. You won't be able to see it visually, but you'll be able to feel it. So I sprayed this with water, let it dry. It took about 20-25 minutes to dry, and then I took a sander and I lightly sanded all that down. After you sprayed it, you can actually feel the grain lifted up after you let it dry. Now, as far as laser choice go, I could have used this in my P2 or the M1. What I found that using the M1, which is a diode laser, actually looks better on the engraving. I don't know why. I think it's something to do with the way it actually burns the wood more instead of just cutting through the wood. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's a lot darker when I do it on the diode laser. And I've tried a bunch of different settings on the CO2 laser, which is the P2. But yeah, it just looks so much better on the M1. Now this cutting board is very big. It will not fit inside the M1. So what I had to do was take the base plate out, lift the M1 up, and put the M1 on top of this. And I've done that many times on different things, but yeah, this one was too big to fit inside there. And because it actually didn't balance well on this little handle, I had to put some pieces of actually coasters around the corners of the M1 so that it fits nice and flat. And I just slid this underneath there, found the sweet spot where it actually balanced in the center and square with this piece, and then I was able to engrave it that way. One thing I noticed was the auto measure inside the XCS was failing. So what I had to do was use the manual ruler method. That can be found on X-Tools website underneath their support. You can look for M1 ruler, and that allows you to manually move the laser head with the laser turned off, manually move the laser head on top of this and take a measurement. And this one measured 25 millimeters from the top of the laser down to the top of this piece of wood. I just entered that in XCS and I had no problem actually engraving this. Because this is underneath the M1, you had to use an open plane mode, and that gives you distance, not thickness, when you actually set that in XCS. So measure 25 down to here, no problem. As far as setting up the engraving, I took some blue painter's tape and laid out the perimeter of where I want the engraving to be. Once underneath the M1, I used the framing feature of the software to frame around it to make sure I have everything lined up and will fit inside my taped area. Here you can see I started the engraving process, letting it do its thing and just watching the magic of the M1 as it engraved this special saying on this cutting board. For the settings, I use my oak cutting board setting, and you can actually find that setting in my shared Google Sheet. If you're not familiar with that, check the description of this video and scroll down and you'll see a link to my material setting sheet. Go there, it's a shared Google document. The first tab has some basic information. Second tab has all my settings, that's the material settings. And in there towards the bottom you can find my oak cutting board, and that's what I used on here. It made a nice deep dark cut, and that's what I was looking for this particular cutting board. So after you're finished engraving, you'll want to wipe down the top of the board because there's going to be oils and a little bit of smoke actually on top of the board, kind of stuck to it. Take some isopropyl alcohol, spray it on a rag, and you can wipe it off. As you can see here, the rag gets very dirty after wiping off the top of the board as a result of the engraving. Now that I had the board all cleaned up, ready to go, the next thing I want to do is actually put a top coat of cutting board oil on there. This is the product that I use just because I have it handy. It was in a local store. There's all kinds of products you can use. If this is going to be used for actually a food prep service, make sure it is food safe. Follow the instructions on the bottle, but just wipe it on. What I found was I wipe it on by hand and I give it a nice smooth coat over front and back. I actually used some standoff pieces of acrylic that I had left over to keep this off the tabletop. That way it has a little bit of air gap underneath it. Make sure you wipe it all down with oil, front, back, sides. Make sure you give it a nice good coat. Because the board is going to soak up that oil, you want to have a nice sort of thick coat on there and let it sit according to the instructions on the bottle. In this case, I let it set for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes was up, I came out and I used a microfiber cloth. You can use any kind of cloth, but I prefer the microfiber because there's no lint left behind. As far as the oil goes, it makes it much darker. As you can see, it's way darker than it was when I first received it from the customer. But I love the way this thing came out, and I really think they're going to enjoy it. Hopefully you found some of these tips and tricks helpful. If you haven't done so, subscribe to my channel. I try to put out different videos either based on the M1, the P2, or sprinkle in some woodworking in there from time to time, and also reviews as well. So yeah, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel. Appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you next time.